She is MLIS, and she is the District Library and Media Services Coordinator for Charleston County School District. Prior to that, she was a middle school librarian and classroom teacher for 20 years. Christy was selected as a member of ALA's Policy Cohort 4 in 2022. She was recognized as a 2020 Library Journal Mover and Shaker Innovator and the 2018 F. William Summers Outstanding Alumni Award from the School of Library and Information Science at the University of South Carolina. Christy is passionate about equity and access and advocating for and promoting the value of school librarians.
We are going to be talking about, it's not bragging if it's true, so using data and stories to create some advocacy and seeing how all of that goes together. There is a bit.ly up there. It is just bit.ly/true SCASL23, and it is case sensitive, so lowercase is what you need. This is not going to be rocket science. I think I said this in my last session too, but this is really trying to leverage all the things you do to make what you are doing day to day really, really matter. Oh, come on, internet. Actually, that might just be that was my bad. I was looking at my notes on here. I was like, no, that's actually a blank slide. Sorry, y'all. I'll fix that. Can I have a do-over? Okay, that's me. That's our contact information. If you are on Twitter or Facebook or Insta, definitely follow @VocalCCSD. I always say it's the happiest library feed around. I retweet things that are happening in our school libraries, things that I get to see when I visit schools, and then all kinds of other fun stuff about literacy and authors and not book banning and that type of thing. Just so you know what you're getting. So, one of my favorite phrases is, it's not bragging if it's true. And I got this from one of my former principals that I worked with when I was in Wilmington, North Carolina. Robin Myers changed my life. I had never had an administrator who actually was supportive. And her whole thing, day in, day out, was, why are you backing away from that? It's not bragging if it's true. And she was a little competitive. She was ridiculously competitive. She wanted us to be the best at everything. And she was shameless about putting out there what she was doing. She was like, why? Why should I back down? It's not bragging if it's true. And this is something that has really stuck in my mind. Jennifer Lagarde and I worked together at Myrtle Grove Middle under Robin Myers at the same time. So a lot of times we have a lot of Robinisms or the Bible of Robin Myers. I had to take a picture of this and text it to her, and she was like, could you not have gotten a better picture? And I was like, it's not bragging if it's true. So really, I want us to remember that you matter. What you do is so, so important. This is not a job that you just accidentally stumbled into. You went back to school, you got a master's degree, you have your educator certificate, so never let anybody treat you like regular glue. You are glitter glue. Glitter. Glitter. All the glitter. Yes. So, what we're going to be talking about are ways and whys to share. Because, again, that's the whole part. It's not bragging if it's true. That means you are actually saying things out loud. That is not bragging. So we're going to look at the data, so the research, the numbers, all those things that we have access to, that we do day to day. We've got the stories. Y'all tell me, you work with kids and you don't come home with a story every day. You come home with multiple stories. And yeah, some of them are silly stories like, oh my gosh, you would not believe where this kid put a booger. But a lot of them, there are those stories too, they're kids. But there are also stories where you see the impact of what happens in your library. And those are the stories we want to share. And what that does creates advocacy, and this is all the math I'm ever gonna do, okay? Data plus stories equals advocacy. But it really is not looking to have to do one more thing, but looking to capitalize and leverage the things that you already do, the things that you are fantastic about, and just putting them out there. It's not bragging if it's true. I'm sure you've heard some version of this, and this is really, really important. We have to tell our own stories, or somebody else is going to tell it for us. And I think we have really, really seen that in the past couple years. People who don't understand what we do are trying to say, we are doing things we are definitely not doing, or saying that we don't need funding, or we should be criminalized. So we have to tell our own stories, because who knows our stories better than we do. So this is all about working smarter, not harder. So your best advocacy is everything you do day to day. You don't have to make anything up, you've already got it. So we're going to be focusing on what is happening in your library. So you know what is happening. You work with other teachers. Do they fully get what's happening in your library? No. You work with administrators. They probably like you, and they may think the library is great because it's not on fire, and that's great, but you're the one who actually knows, and this is why we have to put it out there. And so when we think about advocacy, I'm not thinking about just advocating to a principal for funding, or just advocating to the public, to get parent volunteers, or to not try to ban books, but looking at all the different ways we can share our stories so everybody gets how much we do. But here's the thing, we have access to a lot of numbers. This is a great quote. Data's like garbage. Better know what you're gonna do with it before you collect it. Numbers, just to have numbers, are just numbers. And this is why we really want to think through what is worth our time. We are experts at curation. So this is what we're gonna do. We're gonna curate some data. So, I'm looking on my notes here. So, of course, instruction. We need to be able to share our impact on student achievement. And we do have that. It's not just that we have years and years of studies, many of them done here in South Carolina, but what are we doing that shows how we are connecting with subject standards? What are we doing that shows that we're helping to support curriculum? And y'all, we're doing these things already. So collecting data about the instruction, that matters. Collaboration. Who else is working with you? So what projects were completed? You are not an island. You might feel like you're an island sometime, but you're serving every single student and every single teacher. So capitalizing on that collaboration, because that means it wasn't just an impact in the library, it was also an impact in that classroom or with that other staff person. So whether that's a exceptional ed teacher, whether that's a multilingual teacher, whether that is your school counselors, all of that. Your collection, and it's real easy to say, I'm gonna share my circulation data. Y'all, here's the thing, if I told you that my library circulated 4,083 books every month, does that mean anything to you right now? Because you have no idea what I circulated last year. You have no idea if I've actually got a school of 300 kids, and then if I'm circulating 4,000 books, you're gonna be like, glad I don't have to shelve those. But when we think collection, it's not just the circulation, okay? That does play a part, so I'm not saying circulation doesn't matter. We want the kids to use the books. But when you think about your collection, think about what is on your shelves and how that supports what students need. What is on your shelves and how does that support what teachers need? And then how are the kids using it? That's the usage. Of course, think materials, so yes, that is your circulation, materials usage, but you have so much more than books in your space. So you have your actual space. How is that space being used? Do kids come in at lunch? Do you have book clubs? Do you have meetings hosted after school? Can kids come in before school? Do they stay after school? Do other clubs meet? Are kids able to just come in during, and have work time? How is your library being used? That's data worth collecting. And then time. Where is your time going? And this is where you think of advocacy, because your time is about how it's spent doing the things you're actually supposed to be doing in the library, but also how much of your time is being spent doing things that are keeping you from doing what you should be doing in your library. So all those Chromebooks you're addressing, is that helping your collection development? No. That is worth collecting, all right? And your time matters. Money. So again, what does funding look like? But again, what does funding look like over a period of time? So are you able to show that you got funding, good on you, doing donors choose and writing grants and busting your tail, or are you able to show that your collection is really, really strong because you had consistent funding for year after year after year, and then, an occasional bump here or an occasional bump there. So being able to track that money, also being able to be that program manager, that matters. Being able to show that you have that skill, again, not just that you teach the kids, not just that you do the collection development, not just that you come up with all the programs and displays, but also that you are the manager of all of those finances also. Because money's not always the fun thing, but that matters to people. So, where do you gather that data? Again, remember, not all things are worth collecting. So, monthly reports. I'm looking to see, do I have CCSD folks in here? Okay. I know I said monthly reports and you guys were about to throw things at me. We have a monthly report, and it's actually linked in a Padlet that we're going to be in and out of a couple times. But you can make your monthly report customizable. If you put it in a Google form, you end up with a spreadsheet where you can see where, how things change over time. Make it customized for what you need to collect. CCSD, we collect all the things because I'm the one who uses it a lot for advocacy, and I need to be able to say, this is what's going on in our elementary schools. This is what's happening in our middle schools. They are not getting any time in front of, staff meeting. Our high schoolers aren't attending PD or whatever. So our form is big, but if you were doing this on your own, make that form the 5 questions that you need to collect. So if you're, really focused on collection development, every month run what was added, what was weeded. If you're focusing on whatever, just focus on those questions. Usage reports are fantastic. We've got umpteen reports in Destiny that we can use. If your school has adopted something like CCSD, we just brought on Beanstack, so we've got lots of ways we can report out using that. But all of these different programs have their own reporting features. This is not something that you have to go out and do cartwheels and all kinds of crazy acrobatics to get those numbers. Those exist, and if those programs are being used as part of what you're doing in the library, part of something you're saying, this matters to student achievement, this is supporting literacy, this is supporting research, this is whatever, use those usage numbers. And again, usage is great because you can show that data over time. But you can also report out about your read aloud and recommendations. So again, are you looking to make sure that you're having inclusive reader advisory, inclusive read alouds? A quick tally sheet works super well. So you can just have a little chart or a list of, I read this with 2nd grade, read this with 3rd grade, recommended this to 7th grade. That's all good. And then again, the curation, focusing on your goal, and then also knowing your audience. If you want money, who needs to be convinced? Your principal. But if you are looking to do something more about collaboration, who needs to be convinced? Your teachers. So not all data is created equal. Always frame everything around your impact on students, because it's really easy to frame advocacy around, well, I want a flexible schedule. No, why? What's the benefit of a flexible schedule? The benefit of a flexible schedule is more students have more access to the library and its materials. There's a totally different feel to, I want a flexible schedule, and a flexible schedule provides more access for students. So this is where we're talking about framing things for students. So, again, did I mention none of this was rocket science? Infographics, posters, leaderboards, but looking at the different types of real simple things that you have access to do and create, but also the different types of audiences those things can hit. So an infographic, looking at your admin, looking at your community, infographics tend to be a little easier, broader to understand. Posters, big, in-your-face graphics. That's what you put in front of your teachers and your parents. This is what you post, plaster all over bathroom walls, because everybody goes to the bathroom. Leaderboards. Who doesn't like a little friendly competition? We're going to take a look at each of these and kind of look at a little bit of the pros and cons. So infographics are really, really powerful. It's a great way to summarize really big, complex data in a simple visual way. It gets people's attention, and it also makes things like weeding make sense to admin. Where if you say, I weeded, XYZ number of books, and I added XYZ number of books, your admin sits there and says, I have no idea what you just said. But you've got that in a little graph, a chart, it shows that. You can show that over time. That's powerful. The thing is, it seems like it might be a little bit time consuming to create, but if you've got the data and you know what you want to show, Canva is magic. You're going to hear this again and again. Canva is magic. Free educator account, everybody, free educator account. But they've got the templates there. So you can decide, the colors, all of that. That's the biggest time thing for me in Canva is I was like, oh, but should I make it pink or should I go back to purple? And no, just use the template as it is. But the thing is, it can be tempting to make the infographics too big, too complex, and I actually chose this infographic on purpose. Anybody recognize that? I know I've just got bits and pieces of it. It's from AASL. When they did their Libraries Transform, y'all, there is so much good information on there. But the thing is, you're seeing about this much of it. It goes like this, and then it goes like this, and it is just boom, 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 boom. And it's so much that it almost loses its impact. So your infographic, choose your 5, 6 things, make it nice and pretty and bright. That's what's going to get people's attention. But that also is a great way to communicate with your community, because again, now you're showing numbers and usage and positive information for your community. Use it with the PTO. You need more funding? Well, you can show with an infographic how many books you were able to add this year, how many books you weren't able to add last year, and the next year. Just make sure that you're really, really curating your data. Posters. They're big, they're in people's face, and you can put them in those strategic locations. I really wasn't kidding about the bathrooms though. That's gold. But again, thinking about if you're trying to get students' attention about, using something like a specific database, or if your school has Sora, or you're trying to get people ready for summer reading, you want those, big bits of information where students are going to see them. They all go to the cafeteria every day. There's you know, they're in and out of the gym because they've got PE, that you know that they exit this way towards the parking lot. Be strategic about it. Important to balance the image and the info. Posters that get too text heavy, everybody just walks on by. All right? Big image, date, QR code, it's good. Again, curate. Leaderboards are fantastic because you're shouting out positive data. It is, that's all it is. It's like, who's doing great things? So whether that's the classroom that had the most circulations, whether that is the grade level that returned, you know, has the highest percentage of returned books or whatever, but healthy competition. The thing is, make sure those are getting updated regularly because that's great. So I know in October, this is the homeroom that had the highest circulation, and now it's March, and I haven't heard anything in November, December, January. So the leaderboards are more powerful if you can share it more regularly. And again, the leaderboards are great for everybody. It's quick, it's easy to look at. Admin like to see it because they can see who's, you know, in it. Teachers love to see their name, their class shouted out. Parents and families like to see it, and it helps them understand that. It is easy to just keep recognizing the same class over and over. I've got an example of a Beanstack leaderboard, and we try to mix up the metrics. We do a leaderboard fairly regularly. I try to do it weekly, sometimes it's bi-weekly, but I try to mix the metrics up so it's not just the same schools showing up over and over again. So maybe it is the class that had the most circulation, but then maybe it's the class that wrote the most reviews, then maybe it's the class that did something else. So the more people that can get recognized in the leaderboard, the better. All right, we've got, we're probably gonna take just about 3 minutes here. We've got a big QR code that you'll be able to scan. If you're in the slides already, you should just be able to click on that link for Padlet, or we've got a different bit.ly. This is bit.ly True Ideas 23. And it's just a Padlet that has 3 columns. And so we're going to talk about, give you just a few minutes to add anything in as far as what you may have done that you've been able to really make good use of data, something that you have found successful, or data that you're now excited to go get and share. We're just going to take a couple minutes, let you in that Padlet. Just a minute. Y'all, it's the internet, isn't it? Yeah. Okay, so there's this Padlet that's here. And I think what I might do is, if you all want to shout a couple things out, I can try to jot some notes, and then I can go in the Padlet, and then afterwards you guys will still have access to the Padlet when you also have access to working internet. All right. How have you guys made good use of data?
I've been running title-wise, like every time like I'm leading, because I'm using it to age my circulate, or and because it's I've been focusing on nonfiction, but I've used it. I've got I just printed out like my fiction, so I got that to do this week. But where I can start leading by age, but I don't want to get rid of some of them. So they're good. But
I love leading. I'll come help you.
I've got a list for you.
Don't worry. But title-wise, again, y'all, that's something quick, easy, we have access to. Title-wise makes a lot of visuals themselves, so, and that's, again, fantastic. But think about, because, again, you know the title-wise report, you start scrolling down, there's a lot to it. Curate that data. So if you're going to show that to an admin, what do you want to see? You want them to see that collection age and items per pupil that's big across the top? Do you want them to see that fiction, nonfiction balance? Do you want them to see the interest level where they're like, oh my gosh, we have almost nothing for, 3rd through 5th grade. Why do we have all these picture books and nothing for our upper elementary kids? So tidal waves, great, or tidal wise. Yes, ma'am.
I did my circulations like just the last full year before COVID. You have to be fair about it. And then I took last year and I looked at, and I also was very aware of the number of students. Because since that time I had opened up new schools, so we have, like if you just look at the circulations, it looks like it was the exact same. But when you consider the fact that we have 793 students before and just under 600 now, I did the numbers and my circulations went up 36%.
And that's something to shout about. But you bring up a really important point that, again, not all data is created equal. And if you took that just at face value,
Yeah.
you wouldn't have the real story, which is population went down, but circulation went up.
Right.
So, awesome.
I kind of, to piggyback off of that, one of my goals for this year for the district was to increase nonfiction. And we added like 100+ students to the school this year, so I took last year's data, and kind of had to, adjust it again, to include the other students. But my idea for, the data to use as soon as possible is to, do like a leaderboard on the classes with the least overdue books, because it's getting towards the end of the year, and we need to get them back in. And yeah, so like doing something like that, I've tried to like use, like, I'm at an elementary school, as you know, but I try to use like a rubber band method, like, oh, if you're missing a book, like, keep this rubber band on your wrist until you remember who you book in your book bag, and then you can take it out, or like something like that, I don't remember, but maybe this would be a more.
Middle schoolers don't do that.
No, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm elementary and I do something similar. We have a like prize, so the class or grade level that has the most book turned in the least amount of time, we do that. But I was gonna say Bean Stack, for my like school-wide reading challenge to keep people engaged. I do like the top 10 readers or top 10 badge earners, and it's real quick, like 2-minute report, and then we'll do it on the announcements in the morning. Bean Stack sends badges every month, so I call them down, say, come to the library, get your treat. That's one way that I do it.
And you just remind me of something. When I was talking about being able to kind of mix things up with your leaderboards, you can have leaderboards that aren't necessarily about classes or kids. You can have leaderboards that are about products or books. So, Destiny tells you what your top 10 circulated books are, and you can set the custom dates for that. So, and you could do it for, this, that, or the other. But if you use Macavia, it'll give you a quick overview of what your top databases are being used at your site. So again, that stuff that's just sitting there that could be interesting again, like, oh, so Culturegram seems to be the top one, and you go to your 3rd grade geography teacher, you're teaching 3rd grade geography now for social studies, and you have the perfect opening to collaborate. Anybody else? I don't want to cut you off, but okay. Apologies for the internet. It seemed like a good idea. All right. Those of you who were at USC in the past, David Lankus is amazing. He's at UT Austin now, but he said this in one meeting I was in with him, and I was just like, and again, this isn't rocket science, but this is one that stays with me. Data makes stories real, but stories make data matter. Because all of these numbers, they are eye-catching. And depending on what kind of advocacy you're using, that data, those infographics, that poster, all of that is gonna be good. But there's so much more that we do beyond the numbers. Because that's why I always shy away from the circulation data, because I don't want anybody to ever think that the most important thing that happens in our libraries is the book checkout. I'm not saying that's not important, but when you think of everything else that happens in your library, the stories matter. I walked away from my phone and my notes too much. Obviously, stories about readers, this is the first thing everybody thinks about, is reading. And we all have stories about the kid who said he hated reading and now he can't get enough. We've got stories about the girl who finally found that series that is perfect for her and we just can't keep her away. We've got learning, and this is where that story piece is really, really important, because it's not just that the kids were working on 7th grade science standard XYZ. What did they actually do? What were they able to complete? What do they know now? What resources did they have? That's a story. And then the community piece, because our library is so much more than books. It is a place that fosters community. So what else happens in your library besides the instruction and the classes? What are those interactions between classes, before school, at lunch, when the kids are not where they're supposed to be and they're in your library? Because that happens too. We might not want to highlight that part, but the fact that we do have, we create that safe space that fosters that community. The creating, and again, this might be with your makerspace, because makerspace, there's so many opportunities out there with that kind of creation, but what else is being created? What skills are you putting in place? With the creating, it shows a broader scope, and it's not, I guess, what I said earlier is that it's not just about the books, that we really are looking for the product that is coming out, which again may have absolutely nothing to do with a makerspace. That product might be, that child has an annotated bibliography. That's a big deal. High school folks, you know that those do not just happen. But you can also share stories about progress. And some of you were talking about that data, that circulation change. That is progress. But what other progress is being made? So what progress is being made towards your collection development goals? But again, what does that mean for a kid? So you've added to, more updated nonfiction. And what has that meant for this kid in 2nd grade who is obsessed with dinosaurs and now has books to share? Because those numbers matter, but when people walk away, you're talking to your PTO or you're speaking to a school board, it's that story piece that is going to stick with them. The numbers might get their attention, but the stories are going to be what sticks. And then again, stories about your time. And again, this could be that positive or negative. So when you were able to use your time to actually be a librarian, what were you able to accomplish? Who did you get to work with? What activities and projects and programs actually happened in your library when you got to be a librarian? And then the opposite side of that, what got missed, what got skipped, because you were, you didn't have a chance to do it because you were doing whatever with Chromebooks, that you were trying to reset, somebody's password. What things are being missed out on? So your time is also that story. But again, frame that as far as what that means for kids, not just, I don't like technology. That's not part of my job. All of that is true, all right? All of that is true, but the impact on the kids is what they missed out on. So, sharing stories that focus on your libraries, why? So, why do libraries matter to kids? Why do we, why does our state say that every school should have a school librarian? And then also, how? How does your library work? How does your library impact kids? So, a couple story starters here. And we're going to do this very, very quickly. But the perfect story starters, why you love being a librarian. We were all in that keynote this morning with Jennifer Sturge, hearing those other librarians talking about what they do and what they love. That was powerful. And none of those were more than 45 seconds. Most of them were under 30 seconds. So it doesn't have to be a big production. But you can also think about elevating student voice, because you can say that the library is important, but what happens when the kids say the library is important? Or you actually have a kid talking about not even why they love the library, although that's always super heartwarming, but a kid talking about what they learned, what they did, what they created in the library. That matters. And again, most kids are pretty eager to tell you all the things. But there's also that connection with the curriculum and community, because you have stories that go outside the four walls of your library. And that's important to remember, is that we're the heart of the school, and we do have the biggest classroom in the school, but our reach is so much broader than just that. So I want you to take just a second, turn to a partner, and tell some sort of tell a quick story. I'm going to give you 60 seconds. Tell a quick story to a partner. We're on super speed rules now. But thinking about places to share your stories, because you're not always going to have somebody just say, turn and talk and share a story about your library. That would be great though if that happened. Of course, we've got social media. And again, look at the audiences for that. We have opportunities during meetings sometimes. Again, thinking about our audience for that. Different publications. Obviously, different publications would have different audiences. And then conversations. Because you absolutely should, next time at the grocery store, say, hey, you want to hear the cutest thing that happened in my library today? You're going to be everybody's friend. Social media, we know the pros, visual, brief. It's a great way to shout out positives. Again, it's a broader view of your library, because you have a chance to share the day-to-day, not just, this was our, reading celebration. And that's good to celebrate too, but it's also kind of cool to say this was 7th grade research, and this was, 8th grade doing, hanging out. This was whatever. Social media, again, the more you update it, the better. Canva, again, is magic. Hootsuite is magic, because we have learned, especially in schools, that social media has different audiences. Sometimes we want to connect professionally with other librarians and other teachers. Other times we really want our parents and broader community. The broader community and the parent folk, a lot of them are still on Facebook. Your fellow teachers and librarians might be more on Instagram. If you're looking for professional communities, Twitter is actually still a thing. But this is a chance to really amplify that story. Y'all, does it matter if you have 14 followers? No, because guess what? If one of your followers reshares your story, then, their 42 followers and one of their 42 followers might reshare. But beyond that, you are getting your message out there. Meetings. So whether that is a staff meeting, whether that is an actual opportunity for PD, whether that is a school board meeting, generally the idea of a meeting is that it's supposed to be, okay, maybe not all board meetings recently, but it's supposed to be an uninterrupted opportunity to share. And you have a very targeted audience. You know who you are presenting to. Obviously, there's usually a limited amount of time. If you're at a school board meeting, you've got 60 to 90 seconds. There may not be a lot of time for interaction, but you still have whatever that 60 seconds, or if your principal gave you 10 minutes at a faculty meeting, you still have that undivided attention. And again, it's really tempting to try to share all the things, but if you, have that 5 minutes at a faculty meeting, can you share one database and 2 ideas about how it might be used and where they can come find you and work with you? Yeah, and that's uninterrupted time. So again, thinking about amplifying your voice. Publications, yes, that's our SCASL messenger. But the publications are usually a little more in-depth. Even if we're thinking about a newsletter, that's still going to be a more in-depth coverage of something than what might show up on social media. So these publications, you can make your own publication. I know I've started many a monthly newsletter and they lasted for 2 months, and that's the hard part. Again, Canva is magic, but thinking about your different audiences and looking at local parenting magazines, looking at different, most of the local moose clubs or whatever, they have things. So if you've got a feel-good story about, something that's happening with books or a book fair and you're looking for a book drive, y'all, you can send that little story snippet to the Moose Lodge, you can send it to the VFW, you can send it to all kinds. So, again, work smarter, not harder. But if you are looking at a professional publication, again, we've got SCASL Messenger with an audience of other librarians, but you have, there's publications for South Carolina Council for Teachers of English. There's a email newsletter that goes out for the Social Studies Council. There's all kinds of other avenues, and especially if you want to share. I did this really cool thing with my 7th grade science folks. Find that audience. And there really are conversations, again, beyond the grocery store and beyond turn and talk, but have that elevator speech ready to go. And again, it's a story, because that stranger that, you happen to be on the elevator, or I was waiting in line at the airport and got talking with somebody. They're like, what do you do? And I was like, oh, I'm a librarian. And that was literally my 30 seconds while we were waiting in line, my opportunity to say, it's amazing. I work with incredible people who are making a difference for our kids. Had a chance to talk with my Lyft driver on the way here that he was, telling me, he's like, so is everything digital in libraries now? I was like, no. But again, advocacy does mean, this kind of got cut off, but the graphic says advocacy means going beyond having conversations with the people who already agree with you. But if you've got that, elevator speech, you've got that cute story that doesn't involve boogers, this is always an opportunity. And, okay, we know the Padlet is not a thing. A reminder, y'all are doing all of these things. You have the data, it's there. You've got the stories, you're living it. I mean, every day you get a new story. So those interactions, that's what becomes your advocacy. So seize those daily opportunities, leverage your spheres of influence. So no, I cannot make our governor think sense. That is not actually within my sphere of influence, but who else do I have access to that I can share my story with, that I can utilize the data and make a difference? And that's you in the spotlight, surrounded by stars, because everything you share, remember, it's not bragging if it's true. And, oh, I'm 1 minute over, sorry y'all. But if you have questions, please reach out to me, but thank you all so much. I know it's been a long, exciting day. Hope to see a few of you in the